Welcome back, everybody, to the Pat Flynn Show. Cheers. We were here with Dr. Jim, and we're going to do a Q&A session. So if you've got questions, we're live streaming. Drop them in the comments. We'll get warmed up here a little bit first, and then we will tend to them. Jim?
I almost did bad 80s movie product placement there.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Yeah. Hey,
speaking of all the Spielberg films, they're just full of like, oh, I'm having a Coke now. Yeah.
Well, look at this. I am, for those who aren't watching and listening later, I have water in this fancy little wine glass because we're in a vacation house and there's a severe shortage of actual water glasses. So I'm like, all right.
Yeah, you look so upscale, drinking your water from the crystal.
Indeed. Hey, speaking of product placement, before we dive in, guys, check out Inverted Gear, sponsor of the show. They make awesome kettlebells, and they have a cute little panda logo on them. Plus, you get 15% off automatically anything you want from their inventory, including the kettlebells, but not limited to that. Head over to invertedgear.com/discount/PatFlynn15. So, Jim, what are the updates, man? It's been at least a week. What's
it's summertime and the living is easy, right? So, I'm finished teaching. I'm finished grading. So. I'm about ready to dive into some research and working out and time with the kids and choking people. I mean, that's my plan for the next 10 weeks.
What an awesome combination that is.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. By the way, guys, for Q&A, fair game for anything, fitness, philosophy, whatever you guys want to talk about. We'll talk about working out next, but what are your research plans for the summer?
Yeah, so I've got a fair bit of tedium and tying off stuff on the last project, with the book. But this summer, as far as new stuff goes, I'm going to get into. I'm going to read a lot of Merleau-Ponty and Hans Jonas, two mid 20th century European phenomenologists who did a lot on philosophy of biology and philosophy of mind and intersections therein. Yeah. So there's that's my first move. And I want to get through all the extant Greek tragedies this summer too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Just for personal enrichment.
Increasingly I'm coming to this view and that I think what philosophy is a reaction to tragedy. Okay, in the classical Greek sense, and ultimately, I want to write an introduction to philosophy book that's told through the lens of Greek tragedy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I think I know we can go through the history of philosophy and situate each philosopher in terms of their relationship to Greek tragedy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So whether and so the way I do stuff is I get stuff I want to do. Big picture stuff, and then I just read across all those projects simultaneously, and then whichever one moves me to write first is what I'll do.
That's I like that. That's good.
It's good generalist stuff, right? And so I'll be reading the cog-sci phenomenological stuff with the thought to possibly doing the book on recognition of intelligence and aliens and all that stuff, and then I'm also going to read the Greek tragedy stuff and that with an eye to eventually writing that book on an introduction to philosophy through Greek tragedy, and then whichever one moves me to write first, I'll do.
Yeah, I like that about that writing procedure. I'm the same way. People sometimes ask me about overcoming writer's block, and I guess it's never been an issue for me in a major sense because I've only ever written about stuff I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if I could write about something that I'm not interested in.
People who have to write a weekly column, I think that's got to be hell, right? Where you have to come up with something every week. I don't get writer's block because I don't write till I have something to say.
Yeah.
Right. But whereas if I had to have something to say every week, I think that would be very difficult.
Yeah, so I guess I have that because I have my own column, which is my daily email, more or less. Yeah. So I do have have to hit a deadline every morning by 9 a.m. And sometimes it's a little sticky, I guess, but it's always it's never something that's usually decided in advance, right? So when I finally put I was going to say pen to paper, but nobody actually does that anymore. Fingers to keys. Yeah. It's always something that is of immediate interest to me that I try to, of course, make relevant and valuable to the audience as well. But yeah, if I had to do some column on some assignment that somebody else gave to me, I don't think I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something that helps my writing too is, and this is, maybe, well, this is one of the things people complain about with professors, but we do this. I skew my teaching towards it. Okay. So this fall I'm teaching ethics. Okay. And what are we going to do? We're going to read 3 or 4 Greek tragedies early on, and then we're going to read Aristotle's Poetics and the Nicomachean Ethics. And we're going to read some stuff from Plato, right, where he takes up tragedy and the good life. And they're going to read Nietzsche's Birth of Tragedy.
Right.
And so, but I don't think I'm doing a disservice to the students.
No, you're not. But I'm laughing because it's like what pretty much every trainer does who trains like multiple people or group classes. It's just like, hey, we're doing this program today. It happens to be mine.
It just so happens this is what I'm doing. And then in the spring, I'll probably do my usual philosophical psychology course. And guess what? We'll probably do a lot of like Hans Jonas and Merleau-Ponty in that class. Right. So, coincidence. Yeah. And we'll see. So, but once again, I don't think it's necessary. It can be a disservice to the students if you don't actually cover the course description. Right. But I think course descriptions can be approached from different ways and different emphases. And if it gets me into it for once, it's better for the kids.
That's what I was going to say, right? As long as you're covering what needs to be covered generally, then all the better if the professor has like a really enthusiastic passion about the subject at the time, right? Like the kids are definitely going to benefit from that. So that's cool. All right. We just put a lot out there that I hope people ask some questions about, maybe the alien stuff. But real quick, before we start doing the Q&A, and I see some stuff is already coming in. What's your week of training been like?
Man, I've because my kids are busy whooping ass in the world. That's kind of like flipped my training around, right? So that it's been league championships for track and for swimming, right? And so I've had to train in the mornings, which happily I'm not teaching this week, so it let me do that. So I've been training jiu-jitsu in the mornings, and I can do really well doing kettlebells and stuff and then training jiu-jitsu, but I don't do very well doing jiu-jitsu.
The reverse. Yeah.
So today, just this morning, was the first time. No, I only did 2 kettlebell strength workouts this week. I did get-ups this morning, and I did snatches on Tuesday. So it's been a light week that way, but man, I've had some fun on the mat because I'm a morning guy, so I would much rather be in the mat in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I've been. We brought the 28 kilo down to North Carolina. Yep. And just basics, man. Swings, goblet squats, push-ups. That's pretty much, and a lot of walking. We've been walking all over the place.
Yes. Yeah. No, and I've had that family road trip, many of them, with the kettlebell in the back of the minivan. Right.
That's it, man. And literally the Chrysler Pacifica. That's what
and I don't know how you do your family road trips, but we were big on like we're packing the food, right? We're packing sandwiches and stuff because, when you're like you and me and you have too many children, McDonald's is like, you take a loan out to do that.
It's an $80 bill.
It's an $80 bill. Would always be making sandwiches. So we would do anything we could to find some small town that had a park where we could pull over, make our sandwiches, and I could do my swings. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Right on. Yeah. That's that. Yeah. You get it. You understand, but it's good. I like the restrictions because, we're only here for about a week, but, it's just good, man. Like, I just like having the weather's gorgeous here. So it's nice to get outside and just, it's very little structure. So it's just a certain amount of time. It's like, okay, here's the 2 exercises I'm going to do and we'll just, we'll improvise with it. Yeah. And, it's good. It's good.
And go for a walk.
All right, let's take some questions, guys. Drop whatever you have for us. Gorist Fump, which is cool. A sweet name, says, Dr. Jim, can you talk a bit about your back pain recovery and how it's been since? Back squats and deads take me to Snap City every time. All right, so give us the backstory there, Jim.
Okay, so my back problem, at least originally, is I had 3 stress fractures in my 5th lumbar that it was diagnosed finally my senior year of playing football in college. But they just given my record of pain, they thought I had been playing on it at least since my sophomore year of high school. Right. And I remember, and I remember, I mean, I was in a hell of a lot of pain playing football, but I really thought everybody else hurt that much. So I never like complained about it.
You just thought that was the default.
Yeah, this is football. Sure. Yeah. And like this will wreck you. And I just thought everybody, and I remember telling that to a doctor and he was like, no.
No, son.
No. He's like, and it's a very common injury in linemen. Like I guess many, if not most NFL linemen will eventually get this problem, typically in like the fifth lumbar. And so for me, my initial recovery from it was like drinking a lot of beer and sitting around. Okay. So in my 20s, I wasn't very intentional about it. I couldn't do a whole lot. Like running was not good for it because of the pounding, right? I found all I could do was bench press. So I bench pressed a ton. Okay. Right. And eventually, I had on and off back trouble throughout my 20s into my early 30s. And it was the back pain was one of the things that moved me to finally lose all the weight, right? Because because partly because the back was so bad and I couldn't do anything. That's when I was put on so much weight, and the beer drinking too. Right? Beer
will get you.
Yeah, and the tater tots.
I was talking about yesterday. Yeah. I finally figured out what the issue is. The issue for me isn't. It's combinations of words, right? So anything that answers to the description of cheesy and poof. Yeah. Bread and pudding. It's certain combinations that are the problem, right? If we separate it out like cheese and poof separately, generally no issue, right? We start to put it together. We've got some.
My first year of grad school, I tried to be a vegetarian for a while, and it basically meant the beer and tater tot diet, right? So that didn't go well,
right?
And we had a short-term upside, right? But
right.
Anyway, and so it was losing weight that really started the recovery. Okay. And also I did get into yoga, right? I did a lot of yoga in my like mid 30s. It's part of my regular practice.
DDP yoga?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the DDP interview here in a minute.
Yeah. So that was important. Also I think, and once again, I'm not a professional, I think swinging the kettlebell made a huge difference. I think there were all sorts of weird imbalances and stuff I had. And so I think that really helped a lot, partly just because it got me away from barbells for a while. And so I wasn't getting in those crunchy positions that much. Right. And the traction and the swing and all that. Right. And so now at 47, right. I haven't had back. I can't remember the last time I said, oh my gosh, my back hurt. I mean, I'd probably have to go back to like my late 30s.
Right? Wow. Even with all the jits.
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu doesn't bother. Now, when I was doing, I should go back. When I was doing judo, that was starting to add up. I'm like, I don't know how long I'm able to do this. Right.
Yeah.
And I played in a rugby game, like a homecoming rugby game once on campus. And I tell you what, man, first impact, boom, back hurt. Mm-hmm. Right. So the way I put it to people, as long as I don't like ram shit with my head, it seems like my back's okay.
What a discovery.
What a discovery. Yeah. So and so, I don't have a fancy back recovery story, but losing weight, swinging the kettlebell was definitely part of it. Yoga was part of it, right? And now, I mean, I am no back pain. I mean,
but those are common things, right? People lose weight, they strength train, and they do some type of mobility work, right? Yeah. These are the things that you commonly hear really make a difference. Now, obviously, some issues are they need further intervention than that. Yeah. But I mean, the stories are countless of people who and stop doing the thing that actually hurts too. That's another big part of that story.
Yeah. Quit ramming stuff with your head, man.
Right. So like if back squats and deads are taking you to Snap City every single time.
Don't do it. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I am a natural squatter, right? I mean, if you, God forbid you see me, I am built to squat. Short legs, thick torso. Okay, I can squat a ton of weight. Mm-hmm. But it came to seem to me that was part of the problem because you've got top down pressure on the spine. Okay, and I basically quit back squatting and went down a deadlift rabbit hole because the deadlift ironically did not bother my back. Okay, mm-hmm. And I got to the point where I pulled 600 and it didn't bother my back. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, it could be, I don't know what Fump's problem is particularly, but those might just not be good things for you to do. And however much you love them, and you might need to find something else to do.
Yeah. I stopped back squatting a while ago. I don't have back issues, but the few issues I have a hamstring issue, I have a left hip issue, and I have elbow tendonitis issues.
Yeah.
Most of them are not serious at all, but or they were serious and they've significantly improved.
Yeah.
And the back squat is just one of those few exercises that finds a way of agitating always my hip. It always gets my hip, of all things. Plus, it was like one of those things like, why am I doing this? I love squatting, but I love front squats more. I love goblet squats more. So it's just an exercise that's like, it wasn't hard for me to part with the back squat because I guess I didn't have a big attachment. It was just one of those things like, you just do back squats, right? That's what bros do, right?
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you what too is, I think a problem with me is I started really early in this stuff. I mean, so I benched 275 when I was in 8th grade.
That's serious.
Yeah, right. I mean, and what was that? That was 1988. I mean, it was a bigger deal then, right? But I was, mid high school squatting like 550. Okay, so I put a lot of heavy wear and tear, fairly young on my back without really being taught. I love my coaches that I had growing up, but without really being taught how to do this right, So with my own kids, I have been very reluctant to turn them loose on barbells until I thought there was actually an upside for them.
Yeah. Good call. I hope that's helpful, but follow up if you want to chat.
Yeah, please do.
Raj says, Pat and Jim, I have some general questions. First, what would be considered a good depth in the Bulgarian split squat? I would say if you can get your front thigh to parallel, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You could go lower if you want, but that's sufficient. Mm-hmm.
At least get there, and below that might be needless knee crunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I go maybe a wee bit lower than parallel, but I don't go as deep as I could, because I don't think you need to in that exercise.
Yep.
Second question is, can weighted pull-ups make you strong enough to do rope climbs? And third question is, what would be a respectable recycling. So what would be a respectable number for the single kettlebell military press? All right. Can they? Yeah. Do they do for the weighted pull-ups question? So will weighted pull-ups make you strong for rope climbs? Yeah, they'll help. I don't think that they will make you a phenom at them. I think as anything else, like specificity matters. But if you up your sort of global pulling strength and especially your grip strength, that will carry over. Yep. But
climb the rope.
But because there's a lot of specific technique to getting good at rope climbs. So the answer is yes, but I wouldn't expect like a whole lot of magic to happen from that. Some marginal carryover. And then as far as military press, I think respectable is just like, if you're like generally, I would say my size-ish, which is average size dude, like a solid command with a 20. Well, what do we mean by respectable? Like this is impressive to dudes, or like this is a good baseline? Because there's kind of a difference there. Like I think a good baseline is you can move confidently at 24, right? For multiple reps. I think that's a good baseline for an average size dude. Respectable, like, okay, this dude is serious, would be like same thing, but with a 32.
Yeah, I was going to say 32. I mean, like if I see someone press a 32-pound kettlebell, I'm like, well, that's not their first day playing with the kettlebell, probably.
Right.
You kind of know what you're doing. I think this is a little more than respectable. There's always, Pavels. You should be able to press half your body weight on one arm, right? But that's a pretty tall order for a lot of people, right? That's right beyond respectable, right? That's strong as hell.
That to me is ceiling.
That's strong AF, right?
Yeah, that to me is like ceiling. Like if you're there, like unless you're trying to do some type of competition, I don't think you need to go much further than that, right?
Yeah.
I think then it's like, okay, let's be generalists. Like we've gotten probably pretty much anything we could generally win out of the military press at that point. So let's start doing some other stuff. Cool. Yeah, good question.
Good question.
Callum says, Dr. Jim, I hope I didn't annoy you, but I sent an email asking for a copy of one of your papers. Did you get it?
It's forthcoming. I'll get it to you, Callum. I appreciate it. I kind of like backlog emails and then catch up, right? So no, I appreciate it. And I'm just tickled you're interested in the paper too. So
which one is it?
It's the one I did in part replying to Pasnow's content fallacy argument against the raw style proof. Yeah.
Sweet. I haven't read that one. I'll email you for a copy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But Callum gets it first.
Yeah. First come, first serve.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's good. Do you have? Well, you have this new website coming, by the way. Why don't we use that for a minute?
Yeah.
Because will you have your publications, or at least some of them, available on that site?
Yeah, I'll put what I have up there. I'll put up. Yeah. And so I'm gonna have a website. There'll be a fitness side to it. There'll be a philosophy side to it. There'll be fitness program. There'll be philosophy programming available.
Mind to body. It's perfect.
Mind body. Yeah. So my guy on that said probably sometime this week he should have it for me to look at, and then we'll go operational probably in the next couple of weeks. So,
dude, that's awesome.
Pretty excited. Yeah,
we're gonna bring it on the stream because we can show it on the stream.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And so and I'm once again I'm indebted to you in dragging me into this world, bro.
Yeah. Don't thank me yet.
Yeah. Someday I'll be like sleeping in a cardboard box, like hating Pat Flynn.
Why did he do this to me?
All it wrong.
Right.
Having a good life. Now look at me.
Dealing with trolls on the internet all the time.
It broke me.
Saul says, cheers. He's drinking maltodextrose and whey protein mix post 9-minute run recovery drink. Waits this evening. Cheers to you.
Yeah. You're doing it. You're getting it done. Yeah.
What do you have there, Jim? What are you sipping on?
It's bubbly. It's a kind of a fizzy water.
It is, yes.
I have a bit of an addiction to this.
Yeah, the bubbly stuff is good.
Yeah.
I like I've developed an addiction to what are called acai bowls since I've been down here in Raleigh, North Carolina. There's a little not Raleigh, sorry, where am I? Wilmington. I'm
going to North Carolina next month.
Whereabouts?
Like Raleigh area.
Okay, yeah. So my wife's from Raleigh. That's why I said Raleigh originally, but now we are in Wilmington.
No, I should say Raleigh.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Sweet. Saul, thanks for sharing your drink, man. Brian says, what's your favorite book on Greek tragedy, Jim? I think this is aimed at you. And why is it Fragility of Goodness?
Why is?
It's one of those trick questions you say.
Yeah. I just read Simon Critchley's was it Tragedy, Greeks, and Us, which I thought was superb. Okay. So I will go with Critchley's is my favorite one. My favorite book on Greek tragedy, right? Yeah. And then then I'll kind of get like geek here, right? My second favorite is probably the Spirit chapter of Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, right? So, yeah.
Real quick. Mm-hmm. This is our man IJ, right?
IJ, holy cow.
He's IJ. The one he's just the guy you just gave a shout out to for building your website, right?
That's right, exactly. How you doing, IJ?
Yo, IJ, man, you're welcome to come on the stream, dude. You just say the word, we'll send you the link.
Yeah. And I want at some point the three of us to do a proper podcast because, well, once again, either you two have either dragged me to a new great world, or you're ruining my life. So
yeah, we'll see how it goes. We're too early to make those judgments yet.
IJ, I like that picture.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would have recognized that. Yeah.
Phil says, is Dr. Jim still doing Newport's Giant program? Does or did he feel something was missing since the program doesn't have squatting or upper body pulling?
Yeah, I ran it about 6 weeks and got a good feel for it, got what I wanted, and I got off of it because it felt like it was going to blow me up. I was going to start putting muscle weight on me, which is for me a problem. I don't think there's anything missing if what you want. I mean, it depends what you want. If you want absolute minimalism, that's something that's going to get you strong and leanish and muscled up, but you want to do it uber efficiently with one exercise, this is the way to go. Yeah.
I think that's his follow-up question. He says, what goals do you think this program is best suited for?
Yeah, I think strength and hypertrophy. I always mess that word up. And yeah, and
maybe it is pronounced hypertrophy, but that just sounds.
Yeah,
hypertrophy.
I know.
I'm just always going to say it that way.
Yeah. See what my stilted Wisconsin thing. It's you pronounce every syllable very clearly, like hypertrophy. Don't you know? Yeah. So I would say if you want muscle mass and strength and a touch of conditioning, that's the way. It's a good program for that.
Yeah, Jeff's got good stuff. I've got nothing but great things to say about Jeff. We'll get him on here again soon, guys. For sure. I want to do a follow-up with Jeff. Gora says, thanks. You're certainly welcome, good sir. Good questions, guys. Keep them coming. Bill says, what are your opinions on restricting heavy loads for 13-year-old 8th graders in lifts like trap bar, deadlift, and hang clean? He's working with basketball teams from ages 13 to 18.
Yeah, I didn't let any of my kids touch a barbell until they were in high school, right? And part of this is my own hangover from how it kind of got a hand with me. In fact, 3 of my 4 teens, all 4 of whom are very accomplished athletes, have never done barbells, right? My daughter, who's a swimmer, does swings and get-ups and overhead squats. My 2 sons, who are grapplers and runners and soccer players, they have lots of kettlebells and calisthenic stuff, right? So I understand, like, say it's like basketball, you might have need for barbell and stuff like that, but I was never in a hurry to get my kids into barbells, right?
Yeah.
So now my oldest son, who was a wrestler and a grappler and all that, he wanted to go up 2 weight classes. He wanted to get damn big and damn strong. And so, yeah, I said, son, you're going to deadlift, right? You're going to squat. Yeah.
Yeah, I concur with all that. So, yeah, my kids they're super young right now. So, my oldest is 7, but we're working out a ton. We work out a lot together. Kettlebells, body weight, stuff like that. But I'm not eager to push. I'll be okay with load as he gets older. I mean, the kid's moving some decent load already. He cranked out 30 good push-ups the other day. Real solid. So it's not load per se that I'll be concerned about. It's just overall programming and the implement and stuff like that.
Yeah, and are they going to hate it? Yeah,
are they going to hate it? Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I don't know the science on this, but I kind of wonder. So there's only so big and strong you're going to get, without taking drugs, right? I mean, like, there's a limit to, like, your genetic potential, right? Within, I mean, you could maybe always move the needle a little bit, but within a range of what would make a difference for a sport, okay, there's probably a limit there, right? Mm-hmm. And when you've got, like, testosterone dripping young people, right, especially young boys, how many years does it take to get to that, right? Probably not a whole lot, right? So you wonder, like, if in your 4 years of high school, you're probably, I'd love to see a study of high school athletes that started in, like, 7th grade pumping iron, and high school athletes who started their freshman year, right? Are the outcomes by the time they're seniors all that much different? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. I wonder, right? Because I wonder, it's just, the genetics and the hormones and stuff are going to take over either way, and they're going to get to where they're going to get, right? That's my hypothesis.
Right. Yeah,
my ungrounded hypothesis. Yeah.
Mike Matthews, we're going to get him on the stream soon. He's author of, like, the Bigger, Leaner, Stronger books. He's got good sections in there of what you can kind of realistically expect to get done naturally. Right. And it's good to have those expectations, right? Yeah. It's just
and you see, my point is, like, whether you start in 7th grade or whether you start in 9th grade actually moving a barbell, I don't think it probably makes a difference whether or not you get to that point by the time you're a senior in high school.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right.
I agree.
I don't mean, once again, that I'm speculating there, right?
Yes, but it's an educated speculation. Parisa, if I'm pronouncing that right, says, would you do a conversation or critique on modern reductionism, or maybe cover metaphysics and science of emergence? Thank you both for your philosophical work. Greetings from Croatia. What do you say, Jim? Should we do that at some point?
Yeah, definitely. Right. I guess in some ways I wonder when I'm ever not doing that. Right. So, yeah, by all means. Definitely like to talk about emergence. Yeah, and we really should get around just doing, like, the introductory to philosophy of mind episode, and then this would be a part of that.
That would be a good one. And I still don't know if you're more of a reductionist than I am yet. We haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, no, I'm not at all a reductionist. Am I?
You're not a physicalist, like a hardball physicalist, obviously.
Yeah, right. And like, okay, here we go. Right.
Here we go.
So what is reduction? It's literally what it is to say is you can subsume one theory into a broader theory. Okay. In the way that, what's the famous example that we were able to reduce, was it thermodynamics into molecular motion, the theory of molecular motion, right? And which is to say is the one theory covers everything the other theory does and more. Therefore, we say that former theory is the more fundamental, it's more explanatory, et cetera, right? I think nothing of like that is true about the mind, right? There is no overarching theory to which we can like place it in, right? Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Right. Now, I think and I think we both agree that 100%. I think where we differ is what the ontological consequence of that is, right? Does that require us to posit another kind of set of entities, right, in order to account for the irreducibility of the theories?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I think I'm kind of somewhat agnostic on the latter part, and partly from conversations with you.
Yeah.
Chris Tomaszewski is going to be coming on the podcast soon. Jim, you might want to hop in on that one.
That'd be fun.
He wants to do like 12 arguments for corruptionism.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a corruptionist.
He is. His whole dissertation is on corruptionism and the postmortem state. You know.
No, well, he's right about that. So, right.
Yeah. So that's just an area I have not spent a whole lot of time, aside from like what we've talked about with like NDEs and stuff like that, which I threw that out with Chris before in our previous conversation, and it turned into an interesting conversation. But that's another.
I would love to be a part of it. I don't want to steal his thing either, right? But
right. But yeah, we'll do. The answer is yes. We will do one on reductionism and emergence, and we'll do it in relation. Because emergence by itself is really interesting. Especially with mind, it's especially interesting. But just from an Aristotelian perspective, it's super fascinating, right?
Yeah.
So we will do that. Thank you for the suggestion. I don't know if there's anything specifically you want us to cover now about it. If so, just drop a question. Callum says, Dr. Jim, you're a legend. Of course he is.
In the sense that there's no such man. Who am I really? Thank you, Cal.
Saul says, with regard to God's making our potential actualized and being the eternal now, which theory of time do you tend towards and why? I'm a presentist, but I'm a presentist in the camp of the ET simultaneity model that Eleanor Stump builds out in her book Aquinas. To me, I think that solves all the issues that at least I've felt needed to be solved. What about you, Jim?
I tend to be a kind of a block universe guy.
Sliding over to that B theory.
Yeah, right. A lot of I one time, because it was on my mind, I taught the McTaggart stuff to my students. You know, and it was a classic like bridge too far in the classroom. Like I monologued that article. You know, the famous McTaggart article. I monologued that thing, for about 2 weeks, and it was a philosophy of time party that Dr. Madden was invited to, and no one else was. Right? But I tell you what, it was good for me, kids. It really was. Okay. Anyway, and I came out of that pretty lean to it. So there's Richard Taylor was, I think he's deceased now. Was this very interesting metaphysics guy at one of the UC schools. I think he actually dropped out to raise bees at one point, right? Like this guy, but that
happens. They either go raise bees or 10 goats or something like that.
Yeah. And I love that. I don't know what's the pay. I could be convinced. And he had a lot of very interesting arguments for a kind of block theory of the universe, and yet he was a theist, a secular theist too. He's a very interesting guy, and that always kind of moved me, and not for actually like physics reasons, but just I find it a good way to make sense of future contingents, and I don't think it interrupts the notion of free will and all that. So
no, that's the thing. I think with presentism, you need different reference frames, right? You need the eternal reference frame, which is God, and then you need our temporal reference frame, which is us, and that's what Stump builds out, right?
Yeah.
And I think that solves the issue, some of the issues that you've talked about probably would solve. So if you have the different reference frames in there, which I think makes the best sense in light of modern physics. Then I think you can still say you're a presentist, but still have the advantages that B theory seems to provide in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I also often say, like, I don't think I'm smart enough to actually hold views in philosophy of time. Right.
It's one of the hardest. Philosophy of time is like anything that will stretch or warp your mind.
Yep.
It's that, to be sure. Have you read Phaser's Aristotle's Revenge?
I've not.
He's got a huge section on philosophy and time in there. It's very good.
Yeah.
All arguing for presentism, though.
Yeah.
So he's making a hard push for presentism there.
Yeah. Well, any good Aristotelian ought to, probably, right?
Well, Alex Proust, who's pretty Aristotelian, he's like a super committed B theorist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's one things where like people can have very similar commitments otherwise, but really diverge on theories of time.
Proust, like me, if I remember correctly, suffers from a grave hangover from a dissertation.
A Leibnizian hangover, yeah.
Right, like
what does he do to you guys?
Yeah, well, I know, right. You're never the same again, man. The things we saw.
It's rich, yeah. There's probably like one other person laughing at that.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's Alex Proust.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Cool. Yeah, it'd be fun to do like a philosophy of time, something more in depth on that. But there you go. I was super impressed and still am by Stump's way of going about it. So one of the more detailed accounts she gives of her theory of time is in Aquinas, and to me, when I present it to people, they sometimes aren't sure of whether that's like an A theory or a B theory, and I think that's actually kind of its advantage, right?
I think that's a good sign. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, when these debates grind out like that, right?
Right.
Quit taking the terms of the debate, right? Yeah.
Right. Brian says that sounds good. I'll check them out. Thanks for indulging me. That's to the Greek tragedies, I think.
Sure.
IJ says, doing well. Thanks for the shout out. We'll do a podcast together sometime. But in the meantime, it sounds like you'd love to hear Jim's thoughts on the Ubermensch and self-overcoming. What do we think of the Overman, Jim?
Okay. Woo.
Let's do some background. People might not be familiar. What are we talking about?
So Nietzsche, it's all over, but in the primary place, in which to some people's reckoning is his master work, in Also sprach Zarathustra, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, has Zarathustra, who is this, it's a fictional book. I mean, it's all allegory, who is this quasi prophetic Christ-like figure, comes down from the mountain after 10 years of contemplating to announce the death of God and the coming of the Ubermensch in a way. Okay. And what is the Ubermensch? It gets translated in various ways, from Overman to Superman, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And I think you have to contrast the Ubermensch with the last man. So you have the Overman and the last man as this contrast in Nietzsche. Okay. And in Zarathustra, Nietzsche says that, or Nietzsche has Zarathustra say, humanity, man is a rope stretched between two poles, okay, between the mere beast and the Overman, okay. And Nietzsche's view of human nature is what we are this thing that's always walking a tightrope from the mere beast to something that is greater than a mere beast, an Overman, okay. But no, it would to be that would be to be more than us, okay. And for Nietzsche, this is both like the tragedy and the romance of human nature, is that, as he says in another text, that humans will suffer the most horrible things if they believe it is getting them over this tightrope, if it's getting us to the Overman, if we're becoming more than the mere beast, okay? So for Nietzsche, what humanity is, as distinct from mere beasts, is self-overcoming. It is a project of moving from the mere beast to the Overman. Okay. And Nietzsche has always thought that, Nietzsche's thought that there's always been an Overman for us. There's always been something that we as humans have striving to become that's beyond the mere beast. And what he thinks the problem now is, the most recent of that was the Christian God and or the Platonic God, and that's dead now. We don't have it. We don't have an Overman. Okay. And so rather than being this thing that's stretched between the two poles, we're this last man who's just not trying to get anywhere at all, right? We're just stagnant. We're what's happened to show up last, right? So that's the quick version.
Sorry, I keep muting my mic.
That's all right. That's all right.
The first book I ever read on Nietzsche came from H.L. Mencken. You remember H.L. Mencken? Mm-hmm. And he was kind of the guy that like threw me into the whole the old atheist scene. He's still a hilarious writer. People haven't read H.L. Mencken. Like, I highly recommend him. Just get the Mencken Christomathy, and especially if you like people like Christopher Hitchens. If you like Christopher Hitchens, to me was actually just a diluted Mencken. Like, it's very clear that he read a ton of Mencken and wanted to be like Mencken. But Mencken was sharper, wittier, was actually a better writer.
An aesthetic atheism,
he is, and obviously profound disagreements with him, but I still love his work and writing. He had the first English book on Nietzsche, and it's interesting because I think it's worth reading, because he definitely doesn't. I don't want to say he doesn't get it right, but he wouldn't describe the Overman in the way that you just did. Yeah. And his book did not receive a lot of critical acclaim for being accurate in the actual philosophy of Nietzsche. But I think it's still worth reading, because it's written very well, because Mencken was such a genius prose stylist. But I don't know why I brought that up. It just popped in my head.
Well, this is important. So the way I answered IJ's good question there was entirely almost through the lens of Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra and the Genealogy of Morals. Okay. If you open up The Will to Power, you can find a very different version of the Overman in there. Okay?
Yeah.
And I would be willing to bet probably when Mencken's writing, he's probably reading The Will to Power. Okay. And The Will to Power is a very odd text. I mean, we have the table of contents that Nietzsche had intended for a book titled Will to Power. Okay. But after he had his breakdown, his sister was the executor of his literary estate. And she and her like completely crazy anti-Semitic husband, right, cherry picked all these texts and put them together to fit the out of the hundreds and hundreds of pages of text that Nietzsche left to fit this thing called the Will of Power. Okay. Now that being said, everything in there Nietzsche wrote down. Okay. But its status as the lens through which we interpret Nietzsche is an interesting question. And what I find fascinating is, for instance, Heidegger likes to read Nietzsche through the Will to Power, right? And so, what to make of that is an interesting question. But in the Will of Power, like I can actually use this in my new book. I can show you points in there where it's very clear that Nietzsche thinks the Overman is a machine. It is a fully mechanized humanities, quote unquote, that is no longer conscious and is just operating as an uninterpreted expression of power. And he uses machine metaphors all over it, right? You don't find that people finding that very much. But so my point is to say you can find, especially if you go in the Will of Power, almost anything you want in Nietzsche, which is one of the reasons why he's like both fascinating and dangerous, right?
Yeah, good stuff. We will do another focus philosophy episode on Nietzsche. He was actually kind of the one who kicked off our idea of that series, and it was a great conversation. But we're going to come back and revisit him again. All right, let's keep moving on here. Maxwell says, have either of you two run, by the way, great questions again, guys. Really enjoying this. Let me just say that. Have either of you two run a push-pull program in the past? If so, what are your thoughts? Jim, I'll let you take this first if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely run push-pull programs. And there's actually one I'm kicking around now, with sort of a functional bro split, right? Where you'd be using highly functional lifts, but you'd have a push day and a pull day, right? Right. Mm-hmm. And on push day, I like Turkish get-ups and double kettlebell front squats. Okay. And then throw in there, some kind of like push up or dip as a finisher. And then on pull day, I like snatches, weighted pull-ups, and then something with a mace or a club that gets you overhead, moving like that, right? And then run those 3 days a week, alternating days. So 1 week you get three of one of them, or one of them and two of the other, and the next week you get that reverses. Yeah. So I've actually been playing around. It's kind of really close to what I'm doing right now with my own stuff. Is I've been playing around with push-pull stuff right now.
Yeah, I do frequently. I do push-pull stuff. So. I like to break my programs up typically by movement patterns. So, I mean, it's just such a broad thing that it's kind of hard to answer, but you definitely can have success on a program like that. And in a lot of ways, it makes a lot of sense to break it down.
I want every day to be full body. I don't want, so I don't like leg day. I don't like upper body. I like every day is full body. There's something lower, there's something upper every day. but that doesn't mean you still can't break it up in terms of push and pull or other attributes. Yeah.
Or a particular emphasis.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to frequency too. Like if you don't have a high training frequency in the gym and you're training like 2 days a week, then yeah, like you kind of do want to do like as much full body work as you can.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody who wants to do a higher frequency and you're doing 5-6 days, then you're going to want to break it up a bit more and at least have a certain emphasis. It doesn't mean that you can't have a general full body like routine, but one day is going to emphasize pushing more than pulling, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, good. The Ice King wants to know, can daily heavy, simple, and sinister workouts result in overuse injury? Yeah, they definitely can.
Everything can. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Everything can poison you eventually, right?
Yeah. So I mean, daily heavy one-arm swings, and it is one-arm swings in simple and sinister, right?
Yeah, it can. You'll work up to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and get-ups, daily heavy of that. Yes, it definitely can.
Yeah, and an important note in that book too, Pavel, once you get to the sinister level, I think he cuts you down to 3, maybe 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. The beginning, like at the simple level, it's every day, because he's assuming he's dealing with rank beginners there. So the weights are really light. They need to grease the groove, right? Small bites. But then when things get heavier, he actually cuts down on the frequency.
Yeah.
That's the difference between the first and the second edition of that book. Yeah.
My main concern would probably be elbow issues initially.
Yeah.
For something like that. But shoulder issues would definitely probably be something I would expect to creep up at some point too.
Yeah. And if you just, I think it's important. I love that program, right? But man, make sure you're getting the get up right technically, because I think it can add up if you're crunching weird ways and stuff when you're coming off the ground. Like, make sure you really have the good mobility and you're doing that right. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, if the program is just 2 exercises, right? There's no. I don't think there's ever an excuse in general to not get an exercise right, but there's especially no excuse, right, to not really nail these exercises if they're the only 2 exercises in the program.
Yeah. And I think on that kind of program, one of the keys is of course your goal is to get to like the next higher kettlebell, right? But your goal should be even more important than that, to get good at the skill, right? Get good at the skill, right? And even if you could move more weight, don't, unless you can do it in a highly skillful way.
Yeah. Stevie says, the dynamic duo, your guys' last conversation, you mentioned about getting a cert and starting something up. Well, it encouraged me. So now me and a few buddies are going to start the Get Strong program.
There you go.
Sweet, man.
Go for it, man.
That goes. Mm-hmm.
It's the Wild West, man. Go for it. Right?
Hey, take advantage while it lasts. All right, let's take a few more here. Callum says, has Dr. Jim read Daniel DeHaan's middle position between survivalism and corruptionism? He describes a post-mortem soul as an incomplete person, neither a complete person nor no person at all.
I have not read Dan's piece in that. I didn't know he had done something. I will investigate that.
Yes, smart fellow he is.
He is
I also have to admit to not having read a bunch of his work, and so I myself could use to get caught up on all that. Octus Nero says, hi again, Pat. I was wondering how you personally deal with the problem of existential import to universal propositions. Also, you've heard of Fred Summers' term functor logic. Okay, yeah. How do we feel about ontological commitments in our language, Jim?
Oh, wow, that's an interesting story. Okay, specifically going to ontological import of universal propositions. Okay.
Right.
I just see this as this much ado about very little. Okay.
I'm with you. Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's just, you just have to bring in the notion of supposition and understand under what sort of ontological supposition are we operating here. So, if, because the worry is if I say all hobbits are hairy-footed, that entails
that some hobbit actually exists, right?
Yeah. Some hobbits actually,
which seems strange to say the least, right?
And the way that's been dealt with in a lot of modern logic is to say, well, we're just going to interpret universals as conditionals now, which has its own problems because there's a lot of clearly valid inferences that you lose then, right? So if you go that route, then all hobbits are hairy-footed does not imply that some hobbits are hairy-footed. Okay. Well, hey, here's the deal. there's no universal extensional logic forthcoming. I'm sorry. Okay. And we're going to have to ask ourselves more fundamental questions than logical questions to get logic off the ground, right? We're going to have background assumptions about what we're talking about, what we're trying to do with the language, that are going to be implicit in the conversation that we can't capture with an extensional logic, right? And so when I say, as soon as I say hobbits, right, Pat Flynn knows very well I'm talking about fictional objects because we inhabit this cultural world together, right? That we know what we're doing, right? And I know, okay, yeah, I can't capture that extensional logic, and we're saying that even to do extensional logic presupposes, right, a prior understanding of a shared cultural world. I mean, I have no problem saying that whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
And this, by the way, is why I think we're not machines, but.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with everything you say. I think it is often a majorly overblown issue. When Jim, when you teach logic, do you start people with just like basic Aristotelian logic and go from there?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why I would, like, if I were teaching, that's what I would do. But
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, for many, I mean, so yeah, I think we might have even talked about some of the stuff in the podcast here. When you look at evidence of like knowledge transfer and things like that, it's teaching people highly formalized logical procedures makes them good at highly formalized logical procedures. It doesn't make them better
thinkers necessarily. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have an unpublished textbook that I co-wrote with a colleague of mine here at Benedictine that we use with our students. And we do like classically, we do like classical Aristotelian logic, and then we do like the modern formal logic. And the more we teach it, the more we're asking ourselves, why are we dragging people through this, the highly formalized stuff? Because we know at the end of this class, it's going to probably have done nothing for them outside of this class, right?
Right. Yeah. So for people who are interested in logic, study a great text that I've recommended before is actually Peter Kreeft's book. He's got a book called Socratic Logic. It's an awesome basic logic deck. You'll learn your different proposition types. You'll draw your Euler circles, and that teaches you how to think and analyze, right? Yeah. Is it as efficient as pushing symbols around in certain cases? No, it's not. But it's more fundamental, and it's going to be more useful for most people most of the time in learning how to think well, right?
I would even say too, I mean, if you really are worried about like teaching people how to think better and be better consumer of ideas and be able to defend themselves against bullshit and stuff like that, okay, then I think like a just a good basic introduction to statistical reasoning would be most important, right?
Yeah.
Some good introductions to like basic things about induction and various types of like selection versus treatment biases and stuff like that. I actually think I wish I could do a class given our curriculum here, but I can't.
Have you read Kreeft's book?
Oh yeah. I've taught with it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one. To your other question though about like ontological commitment and our language and propositions. Actually, Bill Craig has a good book on this. I disagree with where he ends up, but his critiques are very good of I think some of the issues you're worrying about, and especially his section on neutralism. And the book is called God Overall. So Craig's worried about the sort of Platonism, right, that he thinks threatens divine aseity. But he does a phenomenal job of showing the hastiness of a lot of these positions and the many issues that they face if you drag in the sense that they're so ontologically inflationary, right? That's a good. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. And I think where he kind of spells out the account of neutralism would probably be very helpful to you, Octus, if you have not already read that book or specifically that section. So I would check that out. Have you read that one, Jim?
I have not.
Yeah.
And as far as Fred Sommer's term logic, somewhere deep back in my aged memory, that's in there from grad school, but I would be irresponsible to comment on it now. Yeah.
Right. Next question. Anthony says, my wife wants to get back to shape after childbirth. Are Turkish get-ups and swings a good start? Yeah, I would say for sure. My wife did that multiple times after childbirth. Yeah. I mean, it was literally pop the baby out, and then she, starting reasonably, of course, right? You know.
Yeah. Let's be smart, right? But yeah. I mean, what better to rebuild your core than that.
Yeah. So that my wife has very shortly after birth, reasonably shortly after birth, every time returned to the kettlebells to help her just build the strength back. So definitely would recommend, with doctor's approval and done reasonably and all that. So definitely.
Always. The people in legal, thank you for that, Pat.
Yes, indeed. All right. David Lang says, "Hi, Pat and Jim." And then there's a
David.
comma and nothing after it. So, David, if you want to fill in the rest of your question there, we'll be happy to take it. Gloria says, "Hello, Pat and Dr. Jim. What do you think about using the same kettlebell sizes for the entire life? For your entire life? For example, in my case, an 2 by 8 kilogram, 2 by 12 kilogram, and 1 by 16 kilogram. Best wishes from a Spanish mama and kettlebell enthusiast."
Yeah.
Well, hello over there in Spain.
Yeah.
Good to hear from you.
I mean, gee, 2 8 kilogram, 2 12 kilogram, and a 16 for a woman. Gosh, I mean, you wouldn't need to get any more kettlebells than that. You could be a good, reasonably fit person your entire life with just those kettlebells. Certainly, yeah.
I completely agree. I think that is a collection that can last you and serve you through your entire life.
Yeah.
And it's going to give you enough options for variety too. So
yeah,
I think you're set, Gloria. Now it's just a matter of just figuring out the type of programming you want to do.
But if you do want one, you would where would you go to get that kettlebell?
Yes. Invertedgear.com. So another shout out to our sponsor. Thank you, Jim. So gentle listeners, again,
I'm getting good at this.
If you want to help us with I would say keep the light on at the Pat Flynn show, but we're at the vacation house right now.
Exactly.
If you want to help Pat Flynn and get his next vacation house, head over to invertedgear.com/discount/PatFlynn15.
If nobody goes to Inverted Gear, Pat doesn't have the money to get home.
You see what's happening with these gas prices around here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So help me get home. Keep the podcast going. 15% off all their inventory, everything. They got these cool little moccasins that I'm taking a look at too. But the kettlebells are in stock. Yep. They're great quality. So help us out. Let's finish with one more question. This comes from Horseman. He says, "I think I have overtrained my hips with kettlebell swings. My hips are popping like it's the 4th of July. Any advice on mobility drills and how to handle it? No joint problems, according to my doc." Yeah. So this is, look, you can overdo it. Some imbalance issues. I'll throw a few things out that have helped me because I've my clicky poppy hip stuff. A lot of hip flexor stretches, a lot of crawling, rocking. Frog stretches are really good, and then really just ease off the swings for a little bit and start doing more of the squats and just try and because the thing is with kettlebells, it is very easy to just go absolutely ham on the swings,
so to speak.
Yeah, that's I think you can get some imbalance issues going on there. So the hip flexor stretches, the frog stretches, and then all the original strength stuff, the crawling, the rocking, all that developmental stuff, I think goes a long way. Jim, what about you?
Yeah, I've never had that problem, but I do think just in terms of prevention, even if you're going down a swing rabbit hole and you're not loading your squat, you should still be doing some squatting in your warm-ups, in your cool downs, in your daily routine. We need to train that groove. We need to be in that groove, even if we don't load it, right? And I've come to a point now where I don't think I have to load every groove, but I have to be good at every groove, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah,
and that's always been Dan John's recommendation for Simple and Sinister. He's at least do some goblet squats.
Yeah.
Even if it's just part of your warm-up. Good stuff. Jim, any announcements before we close out here?
No, nothing right now. Maybe next week we'll get a philosophy focus in. Seems like the people are hungry for that, right?
I think so. We will decide. So gentle listeners, you can let us know if there's we already promised Hegel. We're going to do Hegel. Yeah. It's done. Next week.
It's done. Yeah, I'm teaching Hegel in the fall, so this will be good for me to.
Awesome. All right. Gentle listeners, thank you so much for hanging out, for tuning in. Thank you for the great questions. Folks. We very much appreciate it, and we will close out here with a sweet Pat Flynn tune. And then the after party, which nobody else is invited to except for Jim, will be happening behind the scenes.